Welcome to ABC Interactive English. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
And today we are talking about stories and fables.
Ooh, yes, a very interesting topic.
So stories and fables are, things that we can learn from, but sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not so true.
Yes, they kind of fall into that category of also maybe you've heard of legends. So this kind of idea that you have maybe some real characters, maybe these people really existed, maybe they did something similar to that, or maybe someone else did something similar to the story, and then they create this whole fantastical story that people can read and learn from and then use those ideas in their life later on.
That's right. One of the things that a fable does is it teaches you some kind of lesson that you're to learn from, so you can learn something new and something that you can use in your life just by reading an interesting story.
Yes, a lot of fables try to teach you about morals and saying, oh, you should be a good person because if you don't, something bad will happen. And so some of the most famous fables are the Aesop fables, which usually involve animals. And then they have something happen between the animals, and it's supposed to teach you to just be a good person and follow different morals and principles.
That's right. But today, I don't think we're going to learn about morals so much because we're talking about military strategy, so fighting and war, and maybe you can learn how to win a war.
Yes, this is a story that if you were going to participate in a war, if you needed to go fight somebody, then maybe you should read this one and remember so that you can use some of these strategies.
All right, well, today we're going to be looking at Empty City Strategy, Part 1. So let's take a look.
Zhuge Liang was a great leader. He was famous for his clever military strategy. One day, he was in a small city with a handful of soldiers. Soon, Liang learned the enemy was coming.
Hello, everyone. Today we are looking at a story called Empty City Strategy. And today we're going to be looking at Part 1.
Yes, and so in this title you see empty city, those two words you probably are fairly familiar with, but you might not be as familiar with strategy. And strategy is just a noun that is basically a detailed plan of how you are going to do something or accomplish something. You can have a strategy for how you're going to do very well on that test. Or in our case, we need to have a strategy to how to win some kind of battle or fight.
Okay, so let's get into this story. Zhuge Liang was a great leader. He was famous for his clever military strategy. All right, so we have a word there which is clever, and clever is an adjective. When we say a person is clever or an animal is clever, we mean that they are smart, but also very quick to come up with answers or very quick to learn something new. So they're smart, but also can use their intelligence or smartness in a very quick way. When something like a plan or a strategy is clever, we mean it is very smart and very useful. So, for example, the boy solved the puzzle with his clever plan.
Yes, and then we also had this word military, and here it's being used as an adjective, and military as an adjective just means anything related to the military, the noun form. And the military is just the armed forces or the forces and groups of peoples and weapons and machinery and all of that that a country has in case it needs to fight against another country in a war, or they need to protect their own country. So anything related to the military can be a military something. In this case, a military strategy.
Hello, I'm Tina. 我们来看一下刚刚课文提到的单字 strategy 名词，计谋、策略。Lisa has a new strategy to win the game. Lisa 有一个赢得比赛的新策略。Clever 形容词，聪明的。Ben is a clever boy who loves to read books. Ben 是一个爱读书的聪明男孩。Military, military 形容词，军事的。Lucy visited a military museum last week. Lucy 上周参观了一间军事博物馆。接着我们回到课文当中。
One day, he was in a small city with a handful of soldiers. Okay, so we've said he has a handful of soldiers. So a handful can mean the most you could hold in your hand, or as much as you can hold in your hand. So for example, if I said, I have a handful of coins in my pocket, I would mean I have as many coins as could be held in my hand. When we use this to talk about larger things that obviously couldn't fit in your hand, we mean you have a small number of that thing. So usually it would be maybe more than a few, but less than a lot. So it's not that many, it's just a handful of soldiers.
Yes, and so here we've kind of set up the scene of our story. We have this Zhuge Liang, and he is in this little town, this little village, or this little city, and he doesn't have very many soldiers with him. Well, that can be kind of dangerous if you're kind of in the middle of a war. And so it says in the next part, it says, soon Liang learned the enemy was coming. So that can be kind of nerve-wracking if you are this person who is like in charge of all of the military for one side. And we don't have very many people here, but the enemy is coming. And the enemy would just be, or this word enemy just means anyone who is on the opposite side as you. Of course, you don't normally say in a soccer match that this is my enemy because that's a little bit too strong. We might just say opponent. But in like a war or a fighting situation, you would say the enemy, the person that I don't like, that I am against, that I'm on the opposite side of, and I need to be able to beat them.
我们来看一下刚刚课文里提到的单字 enemy, enemy 名词，敌军、敌方。In the game, you have to fight the enemy to win. 在这个游戏里，你必须打败敌方才能赢。文法的部分刚刚提到了 a handful of 少量的几个的 handful 是名词，意思是少量少数，惯用单数。我们来看看这个例句 Lucy took a handful of candy from the jar. Lucy 从罐子里拿了几颗糖果 jar 指的就是罐子。接着我们回到课文当中
Okay, so we've got a very interesting situation happening because, he is in this place that he's unfamiliar with and only has a handful of soldiers. So it could be very interesting when this enemy does come.
Yes, and they didn't really say too much about this in the beginning, but you might start to kind of recognize some of these names because this is from a very, very famous story. It's from the stories about the three kingdoms, and those are very famous stories, and there's lots in them. So you might have been going, oh, why do I know this name? Well, it is probably somewhere in your memory because these are all very famous stories.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, it's time for us to take a short break, but we'll see you after this.
General Sima Yi was its leader, and he had a huge army. Liang knew his small group couldn't beat them. So Liang ordered his soldiers to open all the gates. He also directed some to dress up as city people and sweep the streets. The others had to hide and keep quiet.
All right, so we are back with our story, and as we've kind of set the scene, we have Zhuge Liang, and he's got a little bit of his soldiers with him, and he's in this city that's maybe outside of where the palace is or where the main forces are, so he doesn't have very many soldiers with him, and he just found out that his enemy is headed right to where he is.
Right, so his enemy is coming, and let's see what happens. General Sima Yi was its leader. and he had a huge army. So this general is the leader of these enemy armies, this enemy army that is coming right now. So a general is a leader of an army. So it's a very high-ranking person in an army. Basically, when you have a group of soldiers in an army, the general is usually the boss of all of those soldiers. So the general is going to be telling people what to do and where to go and making the strategy for how they are going to fight their enemy.
Yes, and he is leading his own army right to Zhuge Liang. And army is just, again, it's very similar to the word we just had about military. Your army is your armed forces, or the group of people and weapons and things that you might have that you are taking to go and fight somebody else. So in our case here, he has a huge army, and we know that Liang only has a small group. So this could be a little bit not so good. If you're Liang, you might be starting to panic a little bit. Okay, so let's see, how does he handle this situation? And it says, Liang knew his small group couldn't beat them. Okay, so he already has it in his head that he can't win. If he actually has to just fight them directly, he doesn't have enough people. There's no way to win.
我们来看一下刚刚课文里提到的单字 General 名词将军 Everyone stood up when the general walked in 当将军走进来时，大家都站了起来 Army 名词军队 Jack wants to join the army when he grows up Jack 长大后想加入军队接着我们回到课文当中
So Liang ordered his soldiers to open all the gates. Now, that seems like something you wouldn't want to do if you have an army coming and he knows that he can't win this fight. So is he just going to give up, it sounds like?
I don't know, because I think if I knew I didn't have enough people to fight, I would try to lock everything down and keep them out as long as possible until hopefully other people show up. So this sounds like the exact opposite of what you might want to do.
I would just run away, I think.
That also could work. Yes, and so let's see, what was he thinking? And it says, he also directed some to dress up as city people and sweep the streets. This some is referring to his soldiers. So he didn't just have them open the gates. He also had them disguise themselves or dress up as just regular city people going about their day. The others, meaning the rest of the soldiers, the others had to hide and keep quiet. Okay, so he seems to have a plan. I'm not sure what it is, but he definitely seems to have an idea, and there's a reason behind opening the gates rather than just saying, we give up, come in and take the whole city.
That's right. So part of his plan was to have some of his soldiers dress up as city people. So to dress up as someone or something means that you are wearing the clothes and the costume or trying to look like you are someone else. An example of dressing up comes every year at Halloween. For example, I dressed up as Superman for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
So by doing that, I wore a costume. I wore the clothing that would make it look like I was Superman. So in this case, the soldiers are wearing the clothing of city people or maybe of those kinds of people that sweep the streets. So they are trying their best to look like normal city people and to not look like soldiers.
我们来看一下刚刚课文里提到的文法 A directs B to 加动词 A 命令 B 做某事 Direct 在这里指的是命令指示我们来看看这个例句 The teacher directed Nelson to clean the board 老师命令 Nelson 擦黑板下一个文法Dress up as 加名词装扮成某角色或身份 Dress up 表示穿上装扮的服装我们来看看这个例句 The kids dressed up as animals for the school play. 孩子们在学校戏剧表演中装扮成动物。接着我们回到课文当中。
Okay, so we see he seems to have a plan. I'm not sure if I trust his plan yet because I am still a little confused on what he is trying to do. So far, it still just sounds like the other enemy army could just walk into the city and take it all over.
All right, well, I guess we're going to find out what happens when the other army arrives when we come back next time, and we will see you then.
Zhuge Liang was a great leader. He was famous for his clever military strategy. One day, he was in a small city with a handful of soldiers. Soon, Liang learned the enemy was coming. General Sima Yi was its leader, and he had a huge army. Liang knew his small group couldn't beat them. So, Liang ordered his soldiers to open all the gates. He also directed some to dress up as city people and sweep the streets. The others had to hide and keep quiet.
我们来复习一下这一课的重点单字跟文法。单字的部分 strategy 名词计谋策略 clever 形容词聪明的 military 形容词军事的 enemy 名词敌军敌方 general 名词将军 army 名词军队。接着我们来看文法的部分 a handful of 少量的几个的 Jenny received a handful of prizes. Jenny 收到了几个奖品。A directs B to 加动词 A 命令 B 做某事。The boss directed our team to complete the report by Friday. 老板要我们团队周五前完成报告。Dress up as 加名词，装扮成某角色或身份。Gary will dress up as a king for the party.Gary 将扮成国王去参加派对。以上就是这一课的重点单字跟文法，那我们下一次再见喽，拜拜。
Oh, sorry I look like such a mess today. I was up gaming all night. I barely got any sleep.
It shows. The bags under your eyes could probably fit a whole week's worth of groceries.
Whoa. Why are you roasting me all of a sudden?
Roasting? I'm not cooking anything.
No, not like roast like that. Roast is just slang meaning that you're making fun of somebody or teasing somebody.
Oh, okay, I get it now. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I just wanted to lighten up the mood.
Well, I know, but it's still kind of bad.
I'm sorry, but you just look really, really tired.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Today's term is roast.
And it doesn't always mean to cook food in an oven or over a fire.
That's right. It can also mean to humorously poke fun at someone, usually in a fun and sarcastic manner.
It's usually directed at public figures like celebrities and comedians, but it's also common among friends.
Here's how you can use the word in a sentence. The internet loves to roast celebrities for their fashion choices.
Or the comedian never misses a chance to roast politicians in his stand-up routines, but it's all in good fun.
Just remember, the key to a good roast is to keep it lighthearted and avoid saying anything too personal or mean.
Exactly. It's all about good-natured humor.
And that's all for today.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.